Hello everyone and Chag Sameach. I'm Rabbi Jeremy Fine, the senior rabbi here at Temple of Aaron in St. Paul, Minnesota. Every year around Simchat Torah, we come together to dance with the Sifrei Torah, to daven next to them, to celebrate and sing.
The Song of Freedom.
A very special part. Let me hear what you got to say on the guitar. Can you do that one more time? Okay, I got it.
Hi, my name is Rabbi Gideon Estes. I'm the Rabbi of Congregation Or Ami in Houston, Texas. And we are the home and custodian of the Space Torah. The Space Torah is the first Sefer Torah ever to go into outer space. It was taken aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia by Dr. Jeffrey Hoffman in March of 1996 on his fifth and final space mission. The Torah had to be small, so it was something that was sought out and found to be something that could actually be taken. But one segment, the first leaf of the Torah, was taken with Dr. Hoffman aboard the crew quarters. And when he was flying over Israel on a Shabbat morning, he actually had the opportunity to read from the Torah.
Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
I really love that image of understanding that when Jews journey to places, we take the Torah along with us. And on this holiday of Simchat Torah, where we celebrate that the Torah is what enlivens and strengthens us, that we can keep coming back to it again and again. The Rimonim on the Space Torah were donated by members of our congregation, Elaine and Mary Hoffman, in honor of the 20th anniversary of the space shuttle flight of the Space Torah. We honor Dr. Hoffman, and they donated this gift in honor of it and reminding the specialness that is the Space Torah.
I'm Cantor Kareth Spencer Shapiro, and this is the story of the Deerskin Torah from University Synagogue in Los Angeles. Or maybe it's the story of the calfskin Torah. I've heard this story a few times, and sometimes it's deer and sometimes calf. I'm thinking about calling it the open-close Torah from now on, and here is its story. Our community once was asked to loan out one of our scrolls to a pop-up synagogue. This was back in the 80s, long before I was a cantor, and the story goes that we loaned our Sefer Torah to the group, and it was promptly returned as promised in its covering and placed back in our ark. But the next time someone took the covering off the Torah, imagine their surprise when they realized it was a different scroll than the one we had loaned out. People from my shul tried to contact the people who had borrowed our scroll, but to no avail. We will never know if it was an intentional swap or a mistake, as the borrowers had vanished without a trace. We later found out that while the scroll we loaned was a kosher scroll, the one returned to us was pasul and not usable for public readings. We're lucky to have 4 kosher scrolls that we read from regularly and a check scroll on loan to us that we use on special occasions in addition to the open-closed Torah. So don't worry, we're okay. Whenever I hear this story, it reminds me that we are supposed to build a fence around the Torah. When we hear that phrase, we take it in a metaphorical sense. So that we don't spend money on Shabbat, the rabbis told us also not to touch money on Shabbat. That's an example of building a fence around the Torah. But in the case of our open-closed Torah, we needed to build an actual fence around our Sefer Torah to guard it and to keep it safe. We're coming out of a season when we pondered gates opening and gates closing. We ask God to open the gates of righteousness for us so that we can march right through them. We hurry through the Ne'ilah prayers urgently, working hard to utter each phrase in our machzorim before the gates close and Yom Kippur comes to an end. As we step into Simchat Torah, I think that if this scroll could talk, it would thank us for keeping it with its other Torah friends in the ark, even though they're kosher and it is pasul. And it would tell us to keep pushing the gates open, to let people in, at the same time doing what we can to protect our heritage. This Torah is a paradox. It's like the broken tablets that our ancestors kept in the Holy Ark even after they were destroyed. It's a non-kosher scroll that we keep in our Ark to tell us that we need to be open and closed at the same time. And that's the story of the Open-Close Torah.
Shalom, I'm Rabbi Halvard Loria. I'm here at B'nai Yeshurun congregation in Pepper Pike, Ohio, in the eastern suburbs of Cleveland. And I want to share the story of this Torah with you. This Torah survived the Holocaust. This Torah is nearly 500 years old. This Torah is considered a superhero Torah. This Torah came to us more than 25 years ago in 1996. But as I said, this Torah is over 400 years old, perhaps 500 years old. This Torah scroll came to us from the Altanoi Shul, the oldest standing synagogue in Europe, in Prague, in the Czech Republic. The synagogue was built in the 1200s, and this Torah was written likely in the 1500s in Prague, just at the time of the rise of the most famous rabbi of the Altanoi Shul, Rabbi Yehuda Loew, known as the Maharal. He was a Torah scholar, and he also was a Jewish mystic. You see, life wasn't easy for Jews in Prague and Europe in the 1500s. There were pogroms, there were attacks against the Jews, there were anti-Semitic incidents. And Rabbi Loew had studied about the mystical ways, the Kabbalistic ways to create a golem, a creature that could protect the Jewish people, to protect his community, to protect his shul. And so, legend has it that Rabbi Loew, the Maharal, collected clay and earth around the city of Prague, and he brought it up to the Torah attic, the closet where all the extra Torahs were kept in the synagogue. And there he took all the clay and he formed out the shape of a body. And using Kabbalistic incantations and spelling the word emet on the forehead as he made the form of a human body, the clay came to life. He breathed life into the clay with the help of Kabbalah and God, and that became the golem. It wasn't a person, it was a creature with superhuman strength. And whenever someone rose up to attack the Jewish community in Prague or to attack the synagogue, legend has it that the golem awoke and that it defended the Jewish people. It protected them. And when the golem wasn't needed, it went into the Altanoi synagogue and it slept in the Torah attic. This Torah scroll, we received it from the attic in the Altanoi land shul. It perhaps was resting beside the golem, the superhero that saved the Jewish people. Perhaps this Torah scroll was the place where the golem rested and maybe even laid his head down to sleep, only to be awakened when the Jewish people needed help, needed to be saved.
Hi again, I'm Rabbi Jeremy Fine, Temple of Aaron in St. Paul, Minnesota. While you've heard some nice stories to begin with, some really celebratory stories of Sifrei Torah, not every story is that uplifting. So is the story of the burned Torah. This Sefer Torah was amongst over 1,500 Sifrei Torah that resided in London being cataloged. Its story actually began in Czechoslovakia, where it was saved by the government during the invasion of the Nazis towards the end of World War II. The Sefer Torah was kept in a basement for over 20 years, collecting dust and mildew. In 1963, a London art connoisseur collected all the Sifrei Torah in hopes to repair them. They found themselves in London, in an attic to be repaired. And our own, at Temple of Aaron, Rabbi Newman, spent time repairing the Sifrei Torah while he was in London. It resides in our display case always for people to see, for people to understand that we keep going and we keep moving and that people's lives were at stake. But we still love and have a devotion to our people and to God.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Noah Farkas from Valley Beth Shalom in Encino, Los Angeles, California. Once upon a time, a few years ago, there was a little boy named Joseph. And Joseph was attending the day school at the congregation, and he realized one day after morning minyan, he left his jacket in the sanctuary on his way to class. So he asked his teacher, "Hey, teacher, can I go back to the sanctuary to get jacket?" And the teacher said, "Fine, that's great." So Joseph turns around and he runs back and he opens the door to the sanctuary, and the lights are all dark. And he walks in and he looks around and it's completely dark. And then he hears a voice. And he says, "Hey, Joseph, come over here, come over here." And he doesn't know where that voice is coming from. He's looking around. He doesn't know where that's coming from. And he looks and he sees the Ner Tamid glowing over the ark. And he looks above and he hears coming out from the ark, "Joseph, come up here, come up here." And Joseph runs up and he looks up at the very big, tall ark with the Ner Tamid and light inside the ark. And he says, "Who's there?" And the voice from inside says, "It's me. It's the Torah." Joseph stands back and is kind of scared. And the Torah says, "Don't be scared, don't be scared. Open the door, open the door." And as he opened the door, the light shines on his face. And Joseph sees 4 Torahs there in the ark and several more above. And Joseph says to the Torah, "How do you know my name?" Well, the Torah says, "Of course I know your name. Your name is Yosef ben Chaim Visara. Yeah, I was there the day you were named, and I was there when your older brother had his bar mitzvah, and I know your parents. I've been there the whole time." He said, "Wow, I have a family, I have parents, I have siblings. I didn't know that I had Torahs." Well, you see, the Torah says we're your family too. We're your family. We're the story of your family. "Really?" says Joseph. "I can't believe that." And then the Torah says, "Yeah, every one of us, every one of these Sifrei Torah are part of your family, and we're all part of the same story, even if our stories are a little different." And Joseph looks over his shoulder, not sure if he should be there or not, and goes to Torah and says, well, what's the story? And the first Torah says, well, it begins very long ago. The Torah he's looking at says, "I'm from Russia. Far away in a small town where there were many Jewish people, and they would celebrate weddings and family. Eventually, for one wedding, commissioned a sofer, someone who writes a Torah, to write and scribe, and I was created that way. But then before I could be brought to the synagogue to be paraded around on this very beautiful wedding day, the Russian police came and they told everyone they had to leave. And so as they escaped, the family that had written this Torah shoved me into a suitcase, and it was so tight. But then, like a couple months later, opened me up again, and I was in a new country. I was here in America, and that day that we arrived was July 4th, 1904. I'll always remember it because it was the day we went through Ellis Island and came to America. And Joey says, "Wow, July 4th, that's Independence Day." And then, yeah, said the first Torah, "That's the day we came to America." Thousands of people from every continent, every corner of the world came to New York City, and they took up residence in a small synagogue on the Lower East Side. And then that family eventually decided to move to California, so they brought me with them to California, and that's how I ended up in this ark, and why I hear you and I listen to you and I know your family, because I am a story about how we came to this country and indeed this city. Chag Sameach, happy Simchat Torah. It's been so great to share with you. I hope everyone has a chance to find their Torah story on this wonderful holiday.
Welcome to Congregation Knesset Israel here in Elgin, Illinois. I'm Rabbi Margaret Frisch-Klein, and I want to welcome you on a journey as we celebrate Simchat Torah and Torah scrolls all over the United States and the world together. We here at CKI, Congregation Knesset Israel, have a very unique, special, and historical Torah. This Sefer Torah is one of 24 Torah scrolls commissioned by Sir Moses Montefiore. It is scroll number 23. We know this because it's inscribed on the Itzim itself, number 23, and because we have all the documentation from 2 sofers. So come look at how beautiful it is together with me.
Go ahead.
Look at just how beautiful the katav is, the writing is. We know that this is a Montefiore scroll that we acquired from a congregation in Quincy, Illinois, a congregation B'nai Shalom, when Rabbi Abraham Rose was the rabbi here. We hope that our sharing it with you has increased our love of Torah and our celebration of Simchat Torah. May we continue to read from the beginning to the end to the beginning again.
Shana Tova, Chag Sameach. My name's Rabbi Daniel Barnachum. I'm the rabbi at Temple B'nai Torah, a Reform congregation in Wonton, New York, on Long Island. This scroll that we have here, our Sofer has instructed and taught us that there are no fewer than 4 different hands that went into the writing of this Sefer Torah. There are Eastern European hands, there are Beit Yaakov and Beit Yosef hands, and there are Velish hands, potentially among others. The Sofer also told us that the different pieces that came together to make this Torah came from over a couple of different centuries throughout Europe. The different klafim, the different pages of parchment that were woven together, potentially even from different Torah scrolls from different various communities coming back together to make one whole scroll. A few years ago, when one of our legacy congregations had the opportunity to repair a Torah scroll as an opportunity for everyone to participate in the act of writing a letter in the Torah, this is the scroll that we chose. And we chose this scroll because we understood that just like this scroll, our community comes from a variety of different places. Our community has different backgrounds, different traditions, different dishes that are special for each of the different holidays that we celebrate. But no matter what differences of background, no matter how different our handwriting might be, regardless of where we come from, at our base are always the words of Torah, the same words of Torah that always bring us together. And so this Torah scroll, much like a Jewish community, represents the diversity that exists within Judaism and the diversity that exists within our community, recognizing all of the various places that we've come from and all of the various traditions that we bring with us.
Ha ha